Ready? Awesome. Welcome, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order of July 22nd, 2025. Welcome. Deputy Mayor, would you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Sure. We would like to acknowledge Wolfville is situated in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, and as such ask we conduct our business with the 7 sacred teachings in mind: truth, honesty, love, courage, respect, wisdom, and humility.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I entertain an approval of the agenda, please? Councillor Butler?
I will move that the agenda be approved as circulated and or amended.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Thank you. Motion is carried. And Town Council in-camera meeting, June 17, 2025. Oh, I didn't do the declarations. Sorry, I didn't do that. We'll go through the motions and then we'll go back to there. Sorry. Town Council in-camera meeting, June 17, 2025. Motion to approve. Councillor
Oh,
Butler?
again, yeah.
Sure.
I move that the minutes of the town council meeting of June 17, 2025 be approved as circulated and or amended.
Thank you. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Are there any errors or omissions in those? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, that too is carried. And our special joint council meeting of June 23rd, 2025. Did that one. Yeah.
I did the first one. I did A.
You just did.
A. I can do B now.
Okay.
Okay. I move that the minutes of the town council in-camera meeting of June 17th, 2025 be approved as circulated and or amended.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Palmer. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, that too is carried. Now the special joint council meeting of June 23rd, 2025.
You just keep going.
Sure.
I like the sound of my voice. I move that the minutes of the special joint council meeting of June 23rd, 2025 be approved as circulated and or amended.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Palmer, thank you. Any errors or omissions on those? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That too is carried. Thank you. And I did skip over number 2. Sorry, any declarations of conflicts of interest on anything on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, thank you. Number 4 on our agenda is our community events and acknowledgements. Does anyone have anything they want to speak of this week or that's happening in the next coming months? Next coming month? Oh, almost 2, I guess, by the time we come back. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
I want to acknowledge the mayor's son going to the Canada Games. How good and exciting is that?
Oh, that's great.
Congratulations. Good for Cooper too.
Oh, yeah, we're pretty proud. Thank you for that. Well, this is our last meeting before we take a break for August. So give us all a little bit of time to recharge, especially our staff. Thank you. And just a reminder that Fridays, our town hall is only open by appointment only. Councillor Elliott, Kent, at a sidewalk looks good.
The sidewalk is great.
Yeah.
They just need to fill in between the driveway and the sidewalk.
Yeah. Sure, Director Legg is on that. Thank you. And for anyone who's been on Grandview, it has a beautiful new top coat of paint on it, or a pavement on it, and it looks wonderful. Our concert in the parks are happening on Sunday still, yoga in the park on Sunday mornings as well. Whittle's having lots of theater still happening throughout August and into September. And of course, this coming weekend is Mud Creek Days. So Thursday night, we kick it off with a cook-off at the community oven. Friday night is our street party, which will be closing down Main Street. Saturday is always the Mud Creek Challenge, fireworks. Coleraine is playing in the park. And then on Sunday, there is a magical, I'm gonna mess up the name again, Magical Mudley Mystery, something like that. There is a beautiful play that's being written, and so it'll be on Sunday. So come out and enjoy all those events that are happening this weekend, and thanks for staff for organizing all those. It's going to be awesome. Anything else? Awesome. it will be a fun weekend. Moving along. Public input. Okay, our public input is a reminder that all speakers of the town conduct its business with the 7 sacred teachings in mind: truth, honesty, love, courage, respect, wisdom, and humility. The members of the public participating in public input sections will conduct themselves in a manner that is respectful to the public, council, and staff. Should that not occur, the chair will advise them and end the questions or comments immediately. You have up to 5 minutes to provide input, and it must be directed to the chair. If appropriate, responses will be responded to in a future CAO report. And any input that relates to personnel, current or potential litigation issues, or planning issues for which a public hearing has already occurred, but no decision has been made by council, they will not be responded to. So I invite anyone who wants to add input, come up to the mic and state your name and your address, please. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Kim McDonald and I am at 27 Sterling Avenue in Wolfville. I've been a resident in Wolfville since 2003, and I'm here to express a specific concern regarding the proposed Housing Accelerator Fund Action Plan being presented tonight. I respectfully request that the new land use bylaw map be amended to remove 699 Main Street from the proposed mixed-use zone designation and restored to its original residential designation. Recommendation number 7 in the plan proposes replacing existing C2 zones or commercial zones outside of the downtown area with the new mixed-use zone. However, 699 Main Street is not currently zoned C2. It is a narrow building lot that previously housed a single home and a garage. This lot sits directly behind the lower quarter of Sterling Avenue properties. If rezoned to mixed use, this lot would allow the construction of a building up to 4 stories high, the same height as the new building being built on Main Street. Could have as many as 120 units, and the building could be built just 3 meters set back from the current property lines of the residential homes on Sterling Avenue. To my knowledge, no formal rezoning or planning applications have been submitted for 699 Main Street or the existing Wolfville Elms property. Yet this lot has been included in the proposed rezoning without clear notification or opportunity for adjacent residents to participate in consultation. Given that this property has historically been a residence, homeowners on Sterling Avenue had no reason to expect this change or to voice concerns up until now. I have found no documentation requesting rezoning or public notice specific to this lot's inclusion in the proposed zoning changes. Again, this lot is zoned residential, not commercial, and my understanding of the new plan is that it wasn't to rezone residential to commercial. It was to rezone to multi-use from commercial. The new term multi-use zoning, as per the document that will be shared tonight, states replace all C2 areas with mixed-use zones and consider adjustments to the zone to enable smaller scale developments. This does not state rezoning residential to commercial. I want to be clear that I have no objections to an expansion to the Wolfville Elms. they have been our neighbors and excellent neighbors, and I fully recognize the importance of increasing senior housing in Wolfville. The current Elms property is currently zoned C2. It's a large parcel of land and offers ample space if thoughtful expansion is considered. By keeping 699 Main Street zoned residential, any further development would maintain a suitable setback from existing homes, helping to protect residents' privacy, property values, and the unique rural character of our small town and the reason many of us moved to Wolfville. I respectfully urge council to amend the proposed land bylaw map and exclude 699 Main Street from the mixed use designation and maintain its residential zoning. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to add to public input? Yep, come on up and state your name and your address. You have 5
Good evening
minutes.
to you all. My name is Abdullah Hassan. I'm a retired surgeon. I live in Sterling Avenue, and I've been here for 8 years. I have 3 questions for the mayor and the council. And I want to make note of a few things that I have read about zoning. I must admit, before last week, I didn't know much about it. Number one, when did the mayor and the council know about the planned nursing home building in our area? Number two, how many nursing homes do we need? There are already 3. There is one, I'm told by a very reliable person in this town, is being built around Maple Ridge. And there is a large senior complex, which is not very far from where we live. The land for the nursing home apparently lies right at the edge of Wolfville with Greenwich. And we have heard from some of our friends on the Greenwich side that the land has been purchased a while back. I know for sure some of the people living in Sterling Avenue have seen plans for the building, which is 4 stories high. There is a large car park around beyond it towards the other end. That's towards Main Street. That 4-story building is going to be one that will deprive us of any privacy, especially those of us who are living on the other side. The 4 stories will also be able to look directly on people on the other side of Sterling Avenue, which is roughly the lower half of it. I'm told about the land being sold to two developers from PEI. And that one developer here has been denied by the previous owner from buying it. Now, I've looked at 3 things about zoning. There is there are new zoning criteria and guidelines developed by the province of Nova Scotia, but I want to note just 3 here out of 7. Number 1, to ensure compatible land use. I consider a nursing home as property that is built primarily for profit. I am a doctor. I know all about the nursing homes and the nursing home residents. It will be extremely noisy. So there's likely to be banging in that area for a minimum of 2 years while they build it, including the car park. And providing infrastructure services, yes. Protecting property. If that nursing home is built, our homes are going to go down in value. Our peace of mind is going to disappear and will be subjected to banging and hitting and noise for a minimum of 2 years while it is being built. So I think these are things that we expect the council to look into. I have looked at the possibility that the council can do. Number 1 is to buy the property back. Number 2, to give the developers land in lieu of that property, but away from areas that is likely to create friction. There will be a lot of friction in that area. My understanding is that there is an unwritten covenant that street, when it's developed by Mike MacArthur, will be a high value street. We pay fairly high taxes. I'm not quite certain about the rest, but judging by the buildings and all that. And that area will be kept.
Sir, you have 1 minute left. You have 1 minute left. You have 1 minute left.
So I haven't really got much to say. So these are the 3 things that I think we should look at. That how much the value of our homes are going to go down, how much our peace of mind is going to disappear, and how much we're going to be subjected to banging while the building is built, which is going to be at least 2 years. The car park is going to be full of people day and night. We will never have the peace that we have now. I ask you all to look into it and try and save us going through more agony.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public input? That's good.
So yeah, so I'm Colin Spencer. I live on 23 Sterling Avenue. I basically just want to second what has already been said here and just make a few comments. So I apologize. I've only been here for 2.5 years, so I'm not sure if this is the right venue to sort of express this. But I just wanted to make some comments just about this whole process and that kind of thing. So one of the things that I was sort of worried about and things like that is that all this seemed to be happening without my knowledge at all. So there really wasn't any sort of communication to people who this would affect in terms of rezoning and things like this. I don't think it would be a surprise to anyone that people who are beside the property that's going to be rezoned commercial to have a potentially a 4-story building would be concerned about that. And I think it's important for people to be notified and told what's happening, especially if part of these meetings is to get public input and opinions, that kind of thing. It's important that we at least know so we can provide those opinions. My concern was that it just seemed like this was just getting rushed through without us knowing. Really seemed like that people didn't want our opinion about it and just trying to get this through, which was sort of disappointing to sort of hear, especially in the town of Wolfville. So, I think just trying to keep that in mind and also understand from our perspective that, it does impact us, like it or lump it, a lot of Canadians, their financial situation is tied up in the value of their home. So any kind of impact to that is going to make people worry. So it's just important for us to stay in the loop and it's just been tough to try to get any information about what's going on. So appreciate sort of getting a better understanding and hopefully to make sure that we have an opinion, regardless of what the outcome becomes. I'd just like to be able to give an opinion about what's going on. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to add their voice to public input? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to motions and recommendations from the Committee of the Whole that is from July the 8th. First item on our agenda is from that meeting was RFD 027-2025 active transportation, the ISIP funding implementation. I can see, is there a presentation on this or is it as presented?
No, it does. As submitted, there's no changes.
Thank you. Would anyone like to put that motion on the floor? Okay. Councilor Palmer?
I would move that council direct staff to work with the province to amend the town's ICIP active transportation contribution agreement, approximately 3.3 million total spend to address the topics noted in RFD 027-2025.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That was presented for those in the audience that don't know this. We have a very lengthy discussion at Committee of the Whole, and then this is a ratification of those or not, depending on the outcome. Are there any other questions or comments on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And RFD 002-2025, the appointment of our Code of Conduct investigator.
I'll move that.
Great. Councillor Butler.
I would move that council direct staff to enter into a standing offer agreement with Joanne Brown and KBRS to be the town investigator for alleged code of conduct for municipal elected officials violations.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Elliott. Thank you. Are there any additions to that, Zio? Thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, 2 is carried unanimously. 029-2025 uranium exploration in the Annapolis and Hants counties. Can I ask Councillor Elliott, if you would mind reading that as motion, please?
Peggy Hope Simpson,
Okay, can you?
my name.
Certainly.
Turn over the page. Okay, this is a long one. RFD 029-2025 uranium exploration in Annapolis and Hants counties. Whereas in a letter dated February 11, 2025, Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Honorable John Lohr, asked the province's mayors and wardens to signal their general support for resource development and stated that steps toward resource development needed to be taken carefully and in consultation with communities. Whereas the province of Nova Scotia repealed its 45-year ban on uranium exploration and mining on March 26, 2025, with limited public consultation. Whereas the town of Wolfville was declared a nuclear-free zone in 1985, reflecting our community's longstanding commitment to nuclear-free policies. Whereas residents of Wolfville have expressed to town council concern and opposition toward uranium exploration in the local area and the implication on the region's potable water, environment, public health, tourism, and agricultural economies are largely unknown. Be it resolved that the town of Wolfville requests that the provincial government engage with municipalities, First Nations, and communities so they may become more informed of potential risks and benefits of uranium exploration and provide input. B, engage in an independent study of the environmental and public health effects of uranium exploration and mining at all proposed sites in Nova Scotia, including the potential effects on private and public water supplies.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Williams. Are there any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, that is 2 carried unanimously. Thank you. And then RFD 030-2025, our Regional Recreation Center. There is that as presented as well?
Yes, there's no changes from.
Thank you. Can someone put that motion on the floor?
I'll put that on the board.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I would move that council approve that the town of Wolfville enter into negotiations of an intermunicipal service agreement for the purposes of developing a regional recreation facility as per the terms and conditions presented in camera.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Great. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Any questions, comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, that 2 is carried unanimously. And then we have RFD 031-2025 Reservoir Park washrooms. Great. Our senior planner is going to give us a presentation on this.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Just get this on the screen here. Thanks, Laura. That's great. Thanks, Mayor and Council and public. I appreciate the opportunity to give an update on what's a fairly exciting opportunity to create a washroom and change room facility in Wolfville's Reservoir Park. Reservoir Park is, I'm sure we're all familiar with, is the largest mixed kind of park in the town of Wolfville. A great destination for many park users and a popular swimming spot. So this park is used by many people, of course. There is a beach commonly used for swimming. There's a lot of dog walking and other recreation activities, including mountain biking, walking and hiking trails as well. So a park that is well used by many different park users and certainly could benefit from a facility that provides washrooms and potentially change rooms for swimmers at the beach as well. So the existing kind of conditions, I'm sure we're all familiar with this, but this is a sort of just above the beach area where we used to have kind of an outhouse facility that's now closed, and we do have these portable toilets sort of seasonally deployed in this on the side here. The site has sort of limited shade. There is shade nearby, but not sort of on this kind of a park area just above the beach. So the washrooms are kind of limited from an accessibility perspective. There's limited shade. and certainly not the most pleasant washrooms, and there's no change room as well. So if you want to swim at this park, you either kind of need to come prepared or make it happen with a towel or otherwise.
Or not.
Everything happens up there. So this is sort of a kind of example of where this kind of facility might locate. We kind of looked at a few different spots, but this site is relatively accessible and close to servicing. So there's an existing water transmission line that comes through here. It's also right above the beach. So this was sort of a central location that seemed to make sense. So just above the beach, we would kind of be able to tuck a facility into the tree line here on the west side of the main grassy area. Our intention is that this facility would be fully accessible washroom, and it would have a kind of covered roof overhang to provide some shade at what's otherwise a very sunny spot. The other great benefit of this location is that it avoids the areas where our volunteers have been working on invasive species in the park. So no impact on areas that they've already cleared. And in fact, it creates a new opportunity to kind of create more opportunities for native planting immediately around the building. So that's great. And we've been working with David Steele in identifying any kind of potential specimen trees in this location and trying to flag those. So the project, this kind of project has been talked about and explored for many years. And earlier in 2025, we were considering a kind of design build RFP or request for proposals similar to what happened with the Visitor Information Center. And that tender process is, I think, appropriate for a visitor information center in this location. It's kind of a timely process, and there was an opportunity earlier in this year, so early in 2025, we established a standing offer commitment with a general contracting service. So COG Construction and a few others are on this list now. COG Construction is a local builder, and they've got projects up and down the valley based in Wolfville. And we've got a relationship with them now. They've done some work in town already on some town facilities, including the rec hub. And so we've been working with them on moving this forward quickly rather than going through a formal RFP. We're able to engage their general contracting service for the construction of the building through the standing offer option. So we've been working with them and our building official, other staff members, and these contractors on developing a bit of a plan, a design for this facility. We've come up with something that can really work, and these folks are ready to go. So we're here at council to talk a little bit about budget, but also give you an update on what this could look like. And there's a few renderings coming, but just generally high level, we're looking at a 2 washroom facility, a structure that includes 2 washrooms, one of which will be fully accessible. 3 changing rooms, kind of an outside foot wash off or rinse off tap, common to many kind of beaches around the province. We'd have a kind of information or bulletin board notification kind of area for public notices, and about a 500 square foot covered area with the roof overhang. The building also has lighting. Security measures are to be determined. We've had some vandalism at other public washrooms, so that's an element that we'll look at carefully. The structure itself would have a metal roof. It would be somewhat seasonal in that the washrooms would be open year round, but the change rooms would be seasonal, so those would be uninsulated. That half of the building. The structure, like the roof structure, would be kind of a timber frame structure and with wood, real wood board and batten siding. So we took some design elements from the Visitor Information Center and some of the kind of trailhead infrastructure that we have in town, and wanted to sort of mimic that style. Just want to highlight that this washroom and change room facility is a piece of the accessibility plan. It's recognized that the Reservoir Park washroom is an important piece because it attracts people of all ages and abilities for different park uses. And the accessibility plan mentions that this structure would be kind of put in place by the end of 2026, and we hope to deliver that ahead of schedule. And it also speaks to the importance of shade up there as well. So just to be clear, the new facility, this new washroom facility would meet the National Building Code accessibility standards, as well as the CSA or Canadian Standards Association accessibility standards as well. These are very similar standards. They're not that different, but there are a few specific elements that are really important in both. So we're trying to meet both of those. So the proposed kind of location, again, if you're kind of just above the beach, looking at the kind of existing portable toilet facilities, there are 2 stakes there. And you could, if you go to visit the park now, you can see those. And those represent the kind of front corner of how this facility could sit into the landscape. It's relatively level. This location was chosen for that so that the slopes to and from the main pad are as gradual as possible. So sort of a crude rendering, but this gives us a sense of how that structure might tuck into the tree line and how it might sit in that kind of central park space. So we took that design and worked with COG Construction. They've developed a rendering here. This is sort of, if you were looking on that from that grass into the tree line, this is the face, and this is where we'd have kind of a bulletin board in the center here. So this wouldn't be quite as plain looking. Then if you were kind of coming into the park, looking down at the beach, this would be the side of the south elevation that you would see. So this is where the 2 washrooms would be located, one of which is fully accessible with an operator, a button operator to open the door. And this demonstrates the kind of overhang where there'd be a considerable shade provided. So there could be picnic tables or other kind of seating under there. And then this would be the change room side. So again, looking up from the beach, if you were in the water looking up, you would sort of see this side of it. So that's kind of what the building would look like. Next steps, what we're here for today is primarily to give you an update on that, give you a sense of how quickly we might be able to start this project and talk about budget. So originally this had been budgeted for $205,000 and our contractor has come in pretty close to that. But there's tax on that as well. So they've got a $228,000 turnkey kind of a fee there. That is really just the structure itself and surrounding landscaping. What we've taken an approach here that we've got really expert folks on staff and we'd like to prioritize the speed of this construction by doing some of the service installations ourselves. So with the public works crew, we've talked about installing some of the servicing. So that would be sewer, water, and power to the structure. The contractor would be sort of responsible for everything else. They could start as early as next week. We've been working with them up till including today on the realities and logistics of this project, and they're ready to go whenever we are. The 205,000, of course, is not quite going to reach even the construction of the structure itself or the construction of that. So we do expect that the budget needs to increase slightly. We were given some feedback from some design consultants that if we went out to the RFP process, it would probably grow in scope even more. So we're fairly sure that we're getting pretty good value here if we were to increase the 205,000 to 275,000. That gives us a bit of a buffer room to cover tax from the construction side, also to purchase and install a grinder pump or a sewer pumping station. This location is about 6 meters below the grade of Pleasant Street, which is where we would need to tap into the nearest sewer system. So we would have a pumping station there. And of course, there's pipe and there's logistics and get into the pavement a little bit. So there'd be some repair work. So we're fairly confident that 275,000 will work. And like I say, these folks could start very soon. We would have to certainly have some messaging go out to the community. We don't expect to have a full park closure, but we would have kind of construction fencing set up. There would be some initial activity as a bit of site clearing occurred. So that would be a bit of a media blitz on that side of it. And again, the town's public works crew could install this sort of sewer and water connections. So COG Construction is ready to go. They could start, like I say, next week. They estimate about 45 to 50 construction days. So that brings us into September, probably the middle of September. Our crew estimates a few days at most to get the sewer in. So we could possibly see this thing built by the end of September if we get council's approval here. And but the budget piece is a big decision. So that's what we're here sort of to talk about today. So the proposed motion is in front of you. I'll pass it back to the mayor and happy to take any questions about design and logistics of construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions? Councillor Williams.
Presumably the sewer line from the washrooms will go up to Reservoir Park along the main drag into the park. So will that be closed? when they're putting the sewer line in,
Yeah, that's,
that the ability to have restricted access.
we're expecting that we can keep that access, that primary access open. And you're right, though, the sewer line will need to go down the main kind of trail, the main entrance. It'll be on one side though. And so we're able to get in there with relatively small machinery. And we probably have some kind of fencing or separation, but it's possible to maintain access. So that's our hope anyway.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Councillor Elliott? Oh, your mic's on.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Councillor Butler.
I have two questions. I'm gonna be that person. So the original budget was approved at 205,000. Your slide previous said that it was going to cost 228,000. So we haven't actually approved a 205 to 228. You want to take it right up to 275. So if we don't approve the 70, would we still need to come back and approve an additional 23 to make it 228,000? Like right now, we can't build it for what we've already approved. So you're kind of asked, I'm wondering why it's not two motions. That's my first question. Second, having gone through the process of building the visitor information center with multiple iterations and multiple budget increases, something about the words very confident that this is correct makes me feel slightly uneasy, because I remember how many times the visitor information center had to come back to us in different iterations. It's very confident is great, but will it come back again for an additional this, additional that, additional that? Those are my two questions.
Yeah, no, fair questions through you, Mayor. The pricing is, I think, generous. I think what we've done so far is price the pump station to about 25,000 plus tax, so that's another 30,000. We're leaving a bit of room for contingency on top of that already, and so you know, we've through working with this contractor fairly closely, we're pretty sure that they are set on their price. They know how to price a project like this, and then we would take over the servicing. And so our work with our public works crew has painted a pretty clear picture on how this thing would be installed and what the materials would cost. And so we're pretty confident. I can't promise that, you know, something might not come up. I mean, who knows? But we've priced this thing out, and we're pretty sure that number should be reasonable.
Just to follow up on my first point about the two separate prices, maybe it's just my way of thinking, but it does feel like it should be two motions, one to increase the 205 to 228, and then an additional amount to cover the sewer, water, all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? Like at the moment, 228 is a new figure for us. We've only approved 205, but in order to do it, it's going to be 228,000, which we have not approved. So if we say no
That fails. then.
if we say no to this motion, nothing gets done. Even though we've approved 205, it can't be done for 205. It has to be 228. Am I reading that correctly?
I think an
Or-
increase is an increase. So regardless, we've already approved 205, so we can either approve this and move the project forward at 275
Okay.
or not.
Or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are our two options.
Yes.
Read that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. And I am really pleased to see all the high upgrades and the accessibility and the shade. Those were two very important topics we talked about in our accessibility committee. So it's nice to see those going through. I guess I have a question. The initial consultation when you thought it was going to be 205, is mostly the extra costs related to Pleasant Street and the pumping station being below? And was that not considered the first time? And then as you're moving into the project, was that something that you noticed and you knew the cost was going to escalate from there?
Yeah, interesting question. I wasn't involved in the exact pricing of where Red 205 came from, and perhaps Director Lake can speak to how those estimates were reached.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've just been around for a while, so I just thought I would come up here. So this goes back to a number of years, and maybe the mayor can help me. We've had this on the docket for, I want to say 5, but maybe
I was going to say 6, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so some of the pricing at an early stage in a project is often done with a construction guide. And so it was a certain type of building, a certain square footage cost. And I know the staff person who's not here anymore, they had really ballparked a cost. To be really honest, we were really skeptical that we could even get this close coming into this construction season, just because it had been that long and there's a lot of cost escalation that's taken place. So the answer to your specific question is no. Those things, some of those specific details wouldn't have been on the table at that time, I wouldn't suspect.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer?
I get two construction questions, I guess. The first one, I'm just asking, Councillor Ingham had talked about accessibility, but the change rooms aren't accessible. Do we have a problem with that? Oh, one is? Oh, one of the change rooms are? Okay, all right, thank you. And are you worried about rock up there, Mark?
Rot,
Rock?
rock. No, we've
Good.
actually, through you, Mayor, we've had a preliminary look. We just, and yeah, they're pretty confident they can scrub the land, and it's relatively rock free.
Yeah, how deep do you have to put the tank?
The tank is 93 inches deep, so about 8 feet. Yeah, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's not run into rock, because that, Mike, your budget would go right out of the, if you worried about budget, we hit rock, and that's gonna change that a lot. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on? Does anyone, I'm happy to see this finally being built. Like I say, it's been a long time in the workings, and I'm happy with the design. I think it ties into the rest of the buildings we've been building around town in our rec department, so that's great. Does someone want to put the motion on the floor?
Do that.
Thank you.
I would move that council approves the budget increase for the Reservoir Park washroom projects from 205,000 to 275,000.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Andy Kirk, thank you for seconding. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, that too is carried unanimously. Thank you for that. Thank you. Mark and Devin, appreciate that. Agenda back. Next item on the agenda is the information report 018-2025, the Housing Accelerator Fund Action Plan Update. I believe Director Lake and our consultant Tristan will be leading us through a presentation.
I'll just let Tristan get settled. So my name's Devin Lake, for those who I haven't met in the audience. I'm the Director of Planning and Public Works for the town. And sitting beside me is Tristan Cleveland. He's been supporting us on this work. He's from Happy Cities Planning Consultancy, and also a professor at Dalhousie University. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do just a short introduction, and then Tristan is going to take you through what our Planning Advisory Committee would have seen with some of the initial recommendations coming out of this work. And then I believe we'll hand it back over to the mayor, and we'll have some discussion and questions. So maybe we'll just hold till the end. Okay, so Laura, can I make this full screen? Is it underneath of there, or? I think this, yeah, this one. Okay. So when I first started with the town is 2015, and I got here and we were starting a plan review, and if someone told me that we were doing another plan review now, I would have told them that they were absolutely out of their mind, and we're definitely not doing that, because we spent from 2015 until 2020 reviewing our planning documents. Significant process. And what we're doing in land use planning is trying to respond to challenges and opportunities. Since 2019, 2020, I don't have to remind everyone all the things that have happened. You know, some of that stuff is challenging. Some of it has been presented as an opportunity. How we respond to these things in a municipal context, from a land use, from a deciding what our community looks like, is through our planning documents. So through our municipal planning strategy and our land use bylaw, we get to decide what's going to be built where, what it looks like, how big it is, what's next to other things. So just to zoom out with you, I wouldn't have expected that we were here, and here we are. So we'll be in another place in some number of years dealing with other challenges. One of the opportunities that came along was the Housing Accelerator Fund. We worked with the last council to submit an action plan and have some contractual obligations to do what you're seeing on the screen. I've presented these, my staff have presented these a number of times, so I'm not going to try to be brief. Tristan's also going to go through these in more detail. So in the broadest of terms, we have committed to reviewing our municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to better enable housing in the town. What this looks like is doing a review of our zoning. So that's really what can go where. Looking at the zone requirements, so how big things can be, how far away they have to be from each other. And looking at our approval processes. So such a big movement in housing coming down from the federal government, coming down from all levels of government really right now is around approval processes, is around where you can build things. And so that's a big part of what we're doing. Reforming parking requirements and looking at the way we manage parking is a commitment that we've made. And the last two, we haven't brought as much work forward on, but they're working with Acadia, and they are looking at non-market housing and permanent affordable housing. So if you've opened up the package, we've done a significant amount of work around action number 1 and 2. We are bringing more work on action number 3 and 4. So there's obviously a huge range of possible change that we could be proposing. And so with the first 2 actions, we tried to bring a bit of a spectrum forward through our planning committee that really has been acting as sort of the steering committee for this work. Council has the very difficult job, and I've worked through some tough files with them on weighing professional planning advice, best practice, consultants, technical studies, all the work that we bring, all of the stakeholders, all of the committee support that they have. And in this circumstance, we also have the Housing Accelerator Fund commitments. And so it's a significant process that we've signed up for. The devil's in the details on these things. So we've tried to bring things forward in sort of, to use an analogy of a funnel, we're still at a fairly high level. We've tried to go to the planning committee, we've gone out to the public, and we've said, are you comfortable with this level of change? We actually proposed a lot of change in some scenarios, and we heard pretty loud and clear that people weren't comfortable with a lot of change. And so what you're seeing in the recommendations is, you know, certainly from my perspective as a professional planner, a fairly low level of change, but I think we don't make the decisions based on, you know, us standing up here and telling you what you should do. It doesn't work like that. I've shown this in other presentations before, but I'm just trying to bring some levity to the position that council's in. Because I hear the same thing sitting in my office. You get a spectrum of opinions on almost everything. You'll hear, you know, just to use the heritage or contemporary design, there's a mixed bag of people out there that want one or the other. Some people don't think we've gone far enough on this. I won't go through all of these examples, but we're trying to strive for balance here and try to hit a place that the community is ready for, but also to meet the requirements and benefit from the opportunity we've been presented. So this is sort of the masterpiece of the planning profession. You know, we produce these maps and this is the recommended direction. I will say that we haven't gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. And so what will happen, and we've seen some of that this evening, there's going to be a lot of individual area, individual property concerns and discussion. And part of this next, what we're basically asking council for tonight is to go out and work on the details so we can have more informed discussion. At this point, we haven't really brought you the details of what all the zones would be. We've given you some directions. We've outlined what the requirements are that we're trying to meet. We think this is fair. Certainly from where I'm sitting, we think we've met the requirements. We've addressed some challenges that we've faced, like commercial expansion. We've respected a lot of the low density concerns that we've had, and a lot of the other change I think was already in motion, frankly. I don't think we're introducing significant change that isn't already in the works. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't bring this up. I also oversee public works. We have a significant amount of assets that we manage. We have fiscal challenges in having a limited capital budget to address all of those challenges, and obviously a lot of things to get done each year through our capital investment plan. So this is just a summary from the investment for success section that's in the back of the package that we've presented. And this is just a summary of how much infrastructure we're managing in the town. So just on the facilities and buildings side, I know those of you that have been on council for a while, there's a lot of discussion that's coming on the level of investment we want to make on facilities. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about stormwater management, the waterfront, different streets that need to get done, aging pipe infrastructure, a lot of aspirations around park facilities. So there's no shortage of need for investment in the town, and I think there's a lot of aspiration for high quality investment. We've brought a bit of a different lens to this plan review. We didn't do this before, and I'm not trying to tout this as the reason to make a decision. This is just another piece of information for council to consider, but we have done some analysis through Turner Drake and Associates just around tax value per acre in the town and what types of land uses are giving the towns, the fiscal side of the town, the biggest benefit. So you can see what the downtown is doing. These bars, this is a simple map. We're not trying to recreate this when we're doing zoning. This is, again, a piece of information, but certainly from my seat, growing budget pressure for the aging infrastructure we have is on my mind. And I know it's on council's minds as well. And when we work with the university, particularly in the last few years, revenue and the need for revenue at the university is top of mind for them as well. So some of the work we're doing and we're bringing forward in the fall is going to really highlight some of the needs that the university has and some of the opportunities that they're looking at. I am wrapping up. So we have used an iterative process. I've been here for almost 10 years, and that's been fairly effective to bring the work forward in packages and show the work as we go and get direction on pieces. So we're just sort of at that precipice of wanting to dive into the details. I think we're close. I think the feedback we get tonight will be really helpful. So I've highlighted there, we would really like to hear more about what concerns you have and or things you support, so that we can do that work and really listen to what the concerns are and try to address those, and while still meeting the half requirements that we have there. So as it says in the third bullet, the details will be worked out by drafting a municipal plan, a land use bylaw that would be brought back to the community. Brought back, and I'll outline some of the consultation and notification that we would be doing, brought back through our planning committee and to council. There are no decisions being made when we're bringing draft documents. These can be changed. We're trying to get something in front of you that's fulsome, that you can consider, that we can answer the questions about what the details are, or we could even run a scenario for you. If someone comes in with this type of application, what does that mean? So we're not there yet. We would like to finish this work by the end of 2025. I think that's very possible. I think that once we get a draft in front of you, we'll be able to make the changes and be responsive.
But even like an acronym up there, PAC and
So the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation is a federal department that's funding the work and has done the Housing Accelerator Fund under the National Housing Strategy, just some of the logos that are at the bottom. And the Planning Advisory Committee is the PAC, yes. So just next steps. So we're bringing this discussion to council, really want to get more into what some of the sticky issues are, where we think we need to bring maybe more renderings, change some things, look at things differently is really what we're hoping for tonight. We need some time to bring you back the draft documents. There'll probably still be some fine tuning that's needed, but we're hoping to bring you something that's, as I say, mostly complete. When we come back, we would go through PAC and council. We would be doing mailouts to all properties. We've made effort to do that for renters and property owners in the past. I think that's an important distinction. We're proposing to have open houses on that material. Obviously, council benefits from this additional round of input. And then we would be bringing back the non-market housing and the student housing work, which is sort of within all of this. So we'll bring that as well. Later in the fall, probably more towards Christmas, we'd be proposing to move towards what is the formal adoption process governed by the Municipal Government Act, which is, again, another round of notice to all properties. There would be a public hearing, opportunity to address council directly, and then a decision-making framework that is really completely up to council. We would be serving up the process at that point as staff, and council can take 1, 10, 5 meetings to work through that. And then I won't go through this. This is just a little bit about the agreement. Again, we do have deadlines. We've extended deadlines. A lot of communities you've seen in the media are doing extensions and different things. We're trying to not extend. We're being told that further extensions are not being offered. We are required to implement our action plan to receive the rest of our funding. And just to highlight some of the things we've been using the funding for and will continue to use the funding for. So I'm going to pass the floor over to Tristan. And are you going to stand? Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to be presenting the same presentation that we showed the Planning Advisory Committee on July 10th, with a few very small adjustments, but I'll be skipping over a few slides in the interest of time. Darren already mentioned the timeline. Just want to emphasize that there will be another round of public consultation in the fall. Just want to say it's very important to us to hear from the community at that time about those details and those questions about specific lots. That will really be the time when we want to hear that feedback. So it's very important to us, both professionally and personally, that people feel heard. So the key kind of feedback that is going to be most valuable today is, again, what are your concerns, or what do you really want us to achieve that we can address either through the details of the regulations that we work out, or through visualizations so that you can present to the public, here's what this actually means. So is there any concerns, whether it's communications or actually what we write in the rules, that we can address? I start all of these meetings by saying the first and most important thing for achieving growth in Wolfville is preserving heritage, is preserving what people love so much about the community, which is the reason why people would want to invest here and the reason why people want to visit and live here. So the recommendations that we've come to is that we would use strong protections for a few key buildings that are especially valuable from a heritage perspective. And the mechanism we would use to do that is to set a 2-story height limit for these buildings. And the landowners can propose to build something taller But to build something taller, they would need to develop a development agreement that specifies exactly how they are going to address these heritage requirements, such as potentially protecting a facade or what have you. We'll also encourage landowners to get their buildings protected on the heritage, the provincial heritage list. We're also looking at opportunities to improve the design guidelines and to protect some elements of character right in the design regulations. So for example, setting a maximum width for commercial frontages, because one of the heritage elements of Wolfville is as you walk down the street, you walk by many, many different shops rather than one big box store that takes up half the street. And then for other character elements that are a little bit harder to achieve through prescriptive rules, we're going to be looking at opportunities to tighten up the guidelines potentially a little bit. We're also going to explore the option of setting a maximum width for building properties. For new properties. There are precedents for this, such as in cities such as San Francisco. This helps ensure that you don't just have a few buildings that take up the whole street and lose some of that fine grained detail. More analysis needs to be done here on what the implications of that are legally, how feasible that is, and whether this is the best tool to achieve the goal. There was major feedback from the Planning Advisory Committee that people really value the views of the waterfront and of the farmland. And so we have two proposed protective view corridors at the moment, one from the corner of Main and Harborview of Blomidon, the other looking down Central Ave to the farmland. For downtown growth, we are proposing to expand the downtown area. This has received general support from the public, as long as we exclude a few places that we considered. And also, as long as we make a few adjustments in the design for some of these areas so that they better blend in with residential neighborhoods. So along these streets marked in blue, we'd be looking at having larger setbacks for buildings so that the buildings line up with the current residential buildings there. And we could potentially add other rules as well if there's any specific requests, but that's what we're looking at right now. For height limits, we originally come to the Planning Advisory Committee saying, we think we can do 6 stories in the downtown, that would be appropriate. And the Planning Advisory Committee really said to us, we feel like that's too much. So we came back and said, okay, 4 stories, which is the current height limit, but right now you can only build to 4 stories if you have a development agreement and do public benefits. We're saying now you can do this by site plan approval, which really does make a big difference for developers because that provides certainty. There's not, it's more of a professional process rather than a political process, and it's shorter. But the step of having to meet the design guidelines is still built into that process. This is not as of right development. This is site plan approval that still has that design review committee step. There is a proposal to allow 6-story buildings in 2 cases. One is in certain areas, such as in the northwest there by the rail lines. We believe there's an opportunity to fit more density in the downtown that will support local businesses, help keep those streets lively, and will be less visible from Main Street, so it'll have less of an impact on heritage. And then there's 2 properties, the subway lot and a lot next to the sports stadium, where we are considering allowing a bit more height for Acadia University. They own those lots, and we want to provide the growth options for them. You know, it much depends on exactly what they think they can do there and with further analysis, but to make sure to create new revenue generating streams for the university. There were some concerns about this, especially the subway lot at the last Planning Advisory Committee. There was a request for more visuals on exactly what that would look like. I wanted to say one more thing here. Oh, the other way that 6-story buildings could happen is if a non-market housing organization is a major component of the project, either owner or they'll be providing housing in the building. So this is not bonus zoning. This is not, you know, slightly affordable housing. We're talking truly non-market permanent, deeply affordable housing. If that is a component, major component of the project, then there might be justification for allowing a bit more height to make those projects more viable. Parking, this is a major issue. So one thing I want to highlight is in the public survey, 64% of residents supported building a new public parking lot downtown following the following strategy. So we presented to them the idea of taking this section of farmland identified in the number 1 circle and turning that into parking. But it's very important to not just preserve farmland in the region, but to actually increase it. So there's town-owned land in number 2 that is currently swamp that could be redeveloped into farmland. So we could basically do a land swap to free up some space right next to the downtown for parking while creating a net positive impact on the amount of parking available. And once there is more parking available there, need to make this point first. So this is just an early rough design. This is based on some feedback from the Planning Advisory Committee. First of all, if you look down Central Avenue, you shouldn't be able to see much parking. The goal is to camouflage the parking to an extent there and preserve that view of farmland. Wanted to make the parking as narrow as possible and drape the existing buildings. And wanted lots of greenery and don't want these big floodlights that are going to block out the view of the stars. And if this parking is provided here and there's a good connection to downtown, that means that some of the parking on Front Street could potentially be redeveloped into new public space and buildings. So this is a sketch of what that could look like, obviously just an early concept sketch. But the point is that you could create a courtyard feel in the public space in front of the library. The library is the building in the back there. And you could also use a building with non-market housing inside on the left with commercial along the ground floor to better tie the market to Main Street. So as you walk down Elm Street, you have buildings with commercial along the ground floor down that street. So it feels like an extension of the downtown. There were concerns here. I do want to mention that the new buildings, would they sufficiently highlight the heritage of the library? So design details would be very, very important there. And secondly, the view of the library from Elm would be disrupted by the building. So that is a trade-off to consider. There is also, we are proposing to incentivize new development on Front Street. Originally, this was in the downtown section, but all the feedback from the public was, if you're going to be building in those parking lots, you better provide enough parking. So we really realized this is really a parking question. But the proposal is to use Bill 177 from the province that allows us to reduce the amount of commercial property tax over a 10-year period where the tax slowly phases in over those 10 years so that new developments are more feasible in those first few years where they might not even have commercial tenants. For on-street parking, we are proposing to introduce paid parking. Wolfville used to have paid parking and it was removed in the 60s. Am I right there, Councillor Wendy? Late 60s, because of concerns that New Minas, that too many people were driving to New Minas instead of Wolfville. The goal here is to actually make parking as convenient as possible, much more than it is now. Because right now, much of the parking on Main Street, in and around Main Street, is taken up by people who park all day, often not even customers. So by making it paid parking and by setting the price at the right level, which we want to adjust over time, we can ensure that there's at least one parking spot full on every block at all times. And then for anyone who doesn't want to fiddle around with, change or paying for parking, we're proposing to create very clear wayfinding to the new free public parking as identified here, so that you either have free parking in a 2-minute walk or paid parking right where you're going. That's the goal with this strategy. And then the paid parking could be used for 2 things. One is to cover the costs of parking enforcement, which is something the town is missing right now and will at some point need to invest in. So paid parking helps cover those costs. Excuse me. And secondly, the funds beyond that could be used such as for investing in placemaking in the downtown, a consistent fund for yearly investments in improving the downtown. And then there's just a general parking management. The town needs to do a number of things to improve it. One is to better align the parking strategy with Acadia. And second, if there are concerns about parking from new buildings spilling into residential streets and making it hard for residents to park, it's very important, it may be important to create residential parking permits to make sure that people retain that access. For parking requirements, there were some concerns about this at the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. We are proposing to eliminate parking requirements for new buildings and for businesses. The reason is that over the last 50 years, the planning profession has come to realize that regulating parking has largely been a mistake, that the best practice now is to allow developers and their funders to decide how much parking their users will need. The trouble is that, you know, if the town regulates exactly how much parking should be required, if we go under and set the parking requirements lower than what they want, well, they'll just build as much as they want. If we set it over, well, there's a number of really negative consequences. Businesses won't open up because it's not feasible to provide enough parking for those businesses to open. Buildings will be demolished to provide enough parking. Homes won't get built that might otherwise exist. Sidewalks will be lined with asphalt. These are all outcomes we don't want to achieve. So the best way to achieve the right balance is actually to let those developers and the people who finance them to decide exactly how much parking to provide. We could make parking requirements more flexible by allowing adjustments for if you provide shared vehicles, etc. But the simplest approach and the lowest cost approach from a staff perspective is just to take that consideration out of the equation. So on neighborhoods, as Devin showed, this is the proposed zoning map. I want to pull out the residential low density, which is the purple area, and restricted overlay, which is the yellow striped lines. So the residential low density will allow up to 4 units, not on every property, up to 4 units where the requirements allow that. If it's a sufficiently large lot, if you could fit the units in the homes, etc. And in the restricted areas, the main difference there is that they're only allowed up to 2 units. At the Planning Advisory Committee meeting, there were concerns about the accessory dwelling units in restricted R1, because in some places the lots are quite small. If you put a unit back there, it'd be looking right into someone else's backyard. So we want to emphasize that this would only be possible on lots that are large enough. Now, we would love to show you a map of where this would be allowed and where this wouldn't be allowed, but we really need to take that next step and actually write those regulations before we can produce that map. So we just want to say we will produce those materials to clarify where this would or would not be allowed, but we need to figure out those details. And then there's residential medium density and residential high density. So residential high density is your apartment buildings on opportunity sites on the edge of town where they'll have the least impact on existing neighborhoods and downtown, but where they can, help provide the amount of housing that we need for everybody. The residential medium density, the goal here is to basically this is where we can allow missing middle. So stacked townhomes, low-rise multifamily units, courtyard buildings, courtyard housing, a variety of options. At the last meeting, there were some concerns over this table that had some specific numbers on it that were quite large. We hear you, and this table really, we've decided, isn't the best guide for what we're intending. So what we really want to express is we want that medium density approach, and we will, if you agree with that, we will come back to you with more regulations on exactly what that would look like. This table is describing the absolute maximum number of units in theory if you had a very large lot and didn't have other restrictions. So we just set this table aside basically for now, and we'll come back to you with more details. As was mentioned previously, we are proposing to replace C2 with a new mixed use zone. We were initially thinking of getting rid of C2 completely, but there are some, schools and elderly care homes that do justify a different kind of zone here. And we don't have a slide for this, but we are also proposing to have a commercial overlay to enable people to open up shops on the ground floor of their homes along Main Street and a few other key intersections. And then for short-term rentals, we're proposing that you can have a full-time short-term rental, not owner-occupied. You could just use that unit for short-term rental all year long in the downtown area, C1, and in these mixed-use zones, and that's it. So it is expanding the area where that's allowed, but not throughout the whole town to reduce the impact on housing. In the rest of the town, including R1, including residential low density, short-term rentals would be allowed for inside owner-occupied units. So you could have a bedroom that you rent out, but you can't rent out the entire house or the entire unit. And there would be a certain number of days a year that you could rent out the whole house if you're leaving home, say, for a month. Okay, so that's the presentation, and we look forward to taking your feedback.
Thank you, Tristan. Dr. Lake, did you have anything you wanted to add, or that's good? Okay, thank you. So as Dr. Lake said, this is for very high level. There's clearly not a lot of details in any of this. So, and as I spoke to him earlier, I said, the devil is really in the details. This doesn't tell us a whole heck of a lot. It's just really, really broad strokes. So I'm going to just walk through one by one and say, do we have agreement? Do we have questions? And really, we'll have many questions. And what is it that you want to see brought back in the details, and how do you want to work through it? If people can give that some thought. So the first topic that went through was heritage. We also had discussion at PAC that heritage and character may not be exactly the same things, but the character of the buildings were really important to the group. So heritage, any thoughts? Yeah, Councillor Butler.
Just to the point that heritage, I think, is extremely important to the bulk of the folks that I speak to. I did have a question just in terms of, with new accessibility rules coming forward for buildings, how does that work with the heritage component that you're proposing here? Like, does it all go together? Like, a lot of heritage buildings, unfortunately, will need to do a lot of cosmetic changes to meet accessibility upgrades for like 2030. How does that play into this? That was my only question about that.
Yeah, good question. Thank you.
I guess I'd like to take your feedback on the direction you'd like us to go, because for these specific buildings, depending on how we write these regulations, you could demolish the whole building and rebuild it and just keep a facade, or even just keep elements of the original building. Depending on how thorough you want those buildings to be protected, there might be some buildings that are so precious that we, want to protect them more thoroughly. But if we do that, then there would have to be funds available for these accessibility needs, perhaps. But would you, may I ask, would you like to provide any direction on how you would like that to be handled?
So I guess the way I see it is, if you have an existing building that does not have the proper accessibility components to it, once you upgrade it, does it lose some of that heritage status if it has a heritage status? Or does it change? Are there rules in place so that if the layout of the building changes, is it something to do with the town parameters we're setting up, or provincial parameters that are being set up?
So if these buildings are added to the provincial heritage list, then other protections would come into play. And I'm not an expert on that, so I wouldn't be able to speak to exactly how they handle accessibility, et cetera. In terms of the town's rules, it would really be about what would be required in that heritage development agreement.
Thank you. Councillor Van Niekerk?
Thanks. Are these the buildings that you're actually proposing or just some suggested ones? I'm just wondering where you're at with the list of protected buildings and have you spoken to the owners of them?
We have not spoken to the owners yet, so that is part of the next stage of consultation. This, this is a list that was developed through consultation with members of the Planning Advisory Committee who focus on heritage and other experts on heritage in the community. So it's a semi-serious list that is still open to feedback from landowners and other sources.
Yeah, I think just as like a next step for your process, I would be very interested in hearing directly from the owners on how they felt about it.
Can I just in the theme of trade-offs, I think when we do notify some of these property owners that we're essentially limiting their development rights, it will be a different conversation. I think, it's going to cut both ways on, some of the more, we're allowing more development in some areas, and I think you're going to feel that. And I think on some of these properties, I think that's maybe where you're going with that, is we're essentially limiting their development rights compared to other properties. And so I think we're going to have to wrestle with that a little bit in the next, when we bring this forward with the details. Part of that will be reaching out to the property owners and letting them know that your property has been identified. Here are the tools that we're looking at using.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting conversation because I think it's interesting because we've identified, just the Heritage Committee has sort of identified these on their own without really any consultation with them. So I think that really needs to be done. And like for myself, I think the word heritage and character are two different things. Heritage protection is a very strict provincial, federally regulated thing. Character is a whole different ballgame. And I think the look and feel of what we want our downtown is character, not necessarily heritage. So I think we need to be careful when we interchange those words. Councillor Elliott.
I just, as one of those heritage people, I wanted to speak to Councillor Butler's question around accessibility. Heritage protection, and whether it's municipal or provincial, only protects the exterior. So another entrance might be required, say, from the side of a building that is easier to access, but it's mostly facade. And anybody who's, to speak to Councillor Van Niekerk's question, anybody who's accepted the protection of either the municipal or provincial, the railway station has national protection. The owners of those buildings know that already. We're looking at maybe there's some more to discuss, but mostly they know.
Okay. I would also be interested in seeing what because I have never seen or worked with the Heritage Committee and what they actually walk through and look at and what their guidelines are and what new ones we might put in place to protect the character or heritage of our downtown.
I think there's going to be I'll call it a tension between the design, like what we can achieve in our design guidelines and what we can achieve through protections, formal protections, because we do need a property owner to agree. And so I think that's going to be the challenge.
Does it matter if it's a site plan or a development agreement then? If you look at those guidelines?
Well, so if someone has a property and they want to propose something, what we're suggesting is if we're saying that it's an important property from a heritage perspective, a process, like a development agreement process, more of a process, let's call it, and that would bring in the political side of it, could benefit that. project if that's what council is trying to achieve. I mean, we had another consultant here another day, and I think it was telling what he had suggested was, if you really want to protect some of these properties, limit what you can do on them significantly. You know, if you want to put a 2-story height limit on part of Main Street, you certainly aren't going to get people reinvesting in those properties.
I should bring in the other side of this, which is, so this other consultant, Rob from Fathom, also emphasized that for these, a heritage development agreement, there could potentially be certain kinds of incentives as well. We still need to explore that, but things to make it attractive to property owners as well. And that could be hammered out in the agreement.
Councillor Palmer?
I think, and I would guess that Councillor Elliott would agree with me, you've missed quite a few buildings in requirements for heritage, would be my guess. But I could tell you a few that I'm not gonna tell you. I think you know which ones I'm talking about, so. But I would wonder if you didn't overlook a few.
So with heritage, are we okay with saying at least at the beginning to come back with some recommendations to identify the highest value? And if you have more, you would send those along? Okay. So is everybody okay with this recommendation, at least coming back with more details? Okay. Heritage, downtown growth. Councillor Van Niekerk.
So I've spoken about this quite a bit at PAC, but I'm not a fan of the current C2. I think it hasn't served us well and has many problems and has resulted in a lack of growth in our downtown core, which is why we have such a small commercial zone. So I'm very supportive of getting rid of C2 and expanding C1 in the highlighted area that you have on there. I feel comfortable with that expansion. But I'm going to go so far as to say as at a minimum. I mean, I think that even looking at coming further up Highland and Gasbro and along Prospect, but if this is where we've landed, it's still good. But just, I think even along Prospect could be C1 as well. So I am a fan of that. This is just the C1 expansion. You have another slide on height, right? So we'll come to that.
We'll come to,
next.
yeah, we'll
Okay.
come to height.
All right, okay, sure.
All right, so yes, I like that. Oh, but are we speaking to this slide now or? Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about this. I think those two kind of go hand in hand. If you're gonna move C1 to take away C2, the setbacks on the next slide are, I think, just as important.
Good, so I have comments on that. I am not in favor of the larger setbacks. I feel like, again, like we kind of got into trouble with C2 having all these restrictions. And again, here we are saying, okay, we're going to do C1, but now we're going to start to add these additional rules on. And we're, again, just, it's a slippery slope into another C2 zone. I think it also adds a layer of administrative burden to staff to try to figure this out. I mean, I know what you're trying to do here, but I also think, you know, as the area develops over the next 50, 100 years, like these setbacks, you won't notice them, they won't make a difference. But what does make a difference in encouraging and achieving the growth we want in this area is allowing people to come in and build up to the sidewalk if they choose to. I think that's how I feel. I think it's a mistake to have the setbacks on certain streets, and that if we're going to do C1, it should be C1. That's
Can I just add a comment? This might be an opportunity for us to show you some examples. I think seeing a couple of views on the street of what something could look like might really help with that discussion.
the mixture.
If there's a mixture, I don't think every lot is ripe for redevelopment. And so I think we could show you some examples of what some of the lots that are probably more ready for development or not and show you what those could look like.
If they didn't have a setback?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, and what they could be with the setback. It's pretty easy for us to show a massing on a site.
But I guess I'm just coming at it more from, I'm more concerned about like, again, having more rules in place, like adding this layering into the zone where we're trying to essentially eliminate that zone with those current rules.
It would be a site plan approval, I assume, so.
Yeah, I would say that showing some scenarios would really help you. Because if you have no parking requirement, that really changes what you can do from a physical layout perspective on a site as well. And then if we want in certain circumstances to look at setbacks, we can show you what that looks like. And but I hear the concern. I don't necessarily disagree with it either. It's I think there's certain areas where a full build out to the property line is probably fine.
Councillor Palmer?
Not to really get in the weeds on this, but it's something like Summer Street, for example, like setbacks would be almost impossible, wouldn't it?
That's kind of where I was going. Some of the streets have really short setbacks. There's some corner lots that probably would be fine having a full build out to the sidewalk. So we'll take that feedback if others are comfortable.
Yeah. I don't feel strongly on it one way or the other. I need to see what it looks like.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I think we need to see what it looks like. I do agree with Councillor Van Niekerk. I don't like to have all these different sort of rules that are sort of merging in, but I do want to be mindful as we're expanding the C1 on Main Street, that some of these budding ones are R3. So that's going from R3 on Main Street all the way up to C1. So I want to be mindful when we have some abutting on what we can do on that. So a setback sort of makes sense to there. So I would really need to have a look at that. But I am mindful on having, you can do this on this property, you can do this on this property, and when does it turn into a site plan? The same as we're going to get into when we're talking the low density, like the size, it gets confusing. And I'll say it because I always say it, let's make this as plain language as we can so everybody can understand it. And the acronyms are all spelled out. So this document is easy to read. And that's because I think in planning, when I've asked questions, I was having difficulty. I'm glad you got rid of that chart that says that, because I was, I think, pushing for that. So I'm glad to see that is not, because that was confusing to me. And I think our job sitting around here is to be able to explain this to the public and feel confident about it. So yeah.
Councillor Elliott?
Just one quick point. When we started creating the heritage rules in Wolfville back in the 1980s, one of the characteristics I remember being told was that construction in this town often goes right to the sidewalk. Like if you look on Gaspereau, and so we already have that on Main Street and other places as well. So to demand it would be pretty complicated in a lot of cases. So that's just historic.
Thank you.
Maybe just one note I'd add is one of the concerns that led to this was that the requirement to have no setback could be difficult in some of these streets. So instead of maybe requiring a larger setback, it could just be allowing a larger setback for cases. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it depends, because some of these are still homes, right? Single family homes, which is important to maintain as well. So again, I think I need to see what that actually looks like before we say, and maybe it's a little specific on certain places, or maybe it's not, but I think I need to see what that actually looks like, because I would not be happy if someone built a 3-story beside me, right up in front of me, so I couldn't even see the street. That wouldn't be a great thing to do to your neighbor. Okay, let's move on to the next one, height limit. Sure, there's a comment or two about that one. 6 stories. So 6 stories didn't go over well at PAC, Planning Advisory Committee. So does anyone have any comments further to that? Counselor Van Niekerk?
I just had a question about the allowing 6-story development in 2 contexts. Is that, are those the only 2 contexts that you're considering 6-story development? Or if you were in a C1 zone for 4 stories through site plan, could you then apply for a development agreement for a 6-story, or is it only those 2 scenarios?
Under this proposal, only those 2 scenarios, one of which was if you have a major non-market housing component, then it could be anywhere in C1.
Okay, so there's no opportunity to go 6 stories outside of those 2 components, those 2 contexts.
Under this proposal, that's right.
Yeah, Counselor Palmer?
I think 6 stories would be, I'm not gonna vote for anything that says we can build 6 stories downtown. I'll tell you that right off the get-go. I won't even hide behind that. If you're talking about allowing 6 stories, period, I'm gonna vote against it.
Me too.
Okay, so 6 stories seems like it's not gonna happen. What does everyone feel about 4? Counselor Williams?
One of the views that you had was down Elm Street, showing that you could see London or at least the Docklands. And it struck me that if you start building even 2 stories, possibly even 1 story, you've destroyed that view.
This one?
Yep.
The current proposal is to protect these views under the design guidelines. That means that if someone wanted to develop that parking lot right there, then in the site plan approval process, they would have to explain how they're going to preserve that view.
Actually, it wasn't that view, it was Elm Street.
Well,
Oh,
we actually didn't have one for Elm
Oh.
Street.
Central.
It was central,
Okay,
Yeah,
that one.
okay, all right.
and we want to move that power pole.
Yeah, I prefer the power pole as well. So 4 stories, maybe protect the view planes. Yes? Okay,
Yes,
Counselor Van Niekerk?
it's just to say that I support
Yep.
4 stories.
Can you please speak into your mic?
Sorry.
We're having trouble with our mics, people here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I do support 4
4
stories.
stories. Okay.
Can I just, one
Yes,
small
definitely.
comment, just for context for everyone. So we're already working on them. We're working with the university on the President's Field property. If people are familiar with that, adjacent to the farmer's market overlooking Raymond Field. And we're looking at the subway parcel with them. That's Acadia-owned property next to the Baptist church. The other lands, there's fairly limited opportunity in that area that we're showing along the rail line, but that's really backing on to like our public works facility. You're getting down close to Home Hardware. That just for everyone's knowledge and just to get some feedback on an openness to see what that could look like. And what I'm hearing is all of the places that are marked for its strong support.
Strong support for it.
All of those areas marked 4 stories, it sounds like people are supporting that. And then we have a couple of areas marked 6. What I'm suggesting is we would bring back what that would look like, or should we not bring that back?
The Acadia owned land. It would be interesting to see. I did look at the parcel right beside Subway and I didn't understand the size of it and how far back it went. I'm not sure about 6 still, but it goes really far back. And if it was way back off the street, I'm not sure about 6 still, but it would be, again, I think I'd need to see it. President's Field, that's number 6, the other 6 story that's labeled. Oh, Councillor Elliott, sorry.
By the rail line.
Oh, by the rail line, yeah.
Right.
Councillor Elliott?
I have a question, and maybe you can reassure me, but I kind of feel like this Housing Accelerator Fund is a bit of a straitjacket. Like we have to change up. We have to allow more to get this funding. Am I looking at it wrong?
So the 4-story proposal is fine by site plan. That's meets the requirements. We're showing some opportunities here. Honestly, and I'll probably have some colleagues from Acadia and when we do discuss their properties, but some of that is more based on revenue generation, opportunity around partnering with private developers, looking at things that the university really needs to flourish, to be completely frank. The other properties, the reason that we're showing that other pocket, the hashed area kind of along the rail line and going down towards Home Hardware, is because it's kind of out of the core of the downtown. And so I think I'm clear on the rest of it, but it would be nice to hear what people think about those areas. And
Councillor Elliott?
whether you want to see more really is what I'm asking.
Councillor Elliott?
I'm remembering 15 or so years ago when the owner of the rail line held a meeting. Vincent Den Hartog was there, and it was in the farmer's market, and he was like, I'm open to this. I'm willing to sell. And nobody ever went there, right?
So he's still around. We've had meetings with him. So there's other properties within that though. So the rail line is a limited opportunity, but there's also the Lions, the Kavanaugh property right along the rail line. Another Acadia property I think is in there. And then the old garage. That's really it. And then there's some properties along Elm, which I'm not sure it benefits us significantly to even include those, because I'm not sure we're going to see redevelopment of some of those. And so it would really benefit us from how much work we're putting into this analysis to know if there's comfort in bringing back a few options on select areas down there for more height or not. Because there's enough, to be really honest, there's enough for us to take on. And if we can eliminate a few things tonight, that would be positive.
Deputy Mayor?
Can you tell me, I'm not so sure I'm in favor of the 6 in the parking lot at the subway. I know it's Acadia owned land, but it's not very big, is it? How much is that compared to President's Field? President Field maybe makes a little bit more sense at the 6, but that one is right in the core and there's no other ones right there. So I'm not liking that.
Can we say that that's going to be in the details and bring those details back to us right now? Just say, you take those 2 6s back and give us the details on those and we'll see. The other gray 6s, no, not for me anyway.
I'm not for the
Anyone?
other, I'm not for the gray 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councilor Van Niekerk?
So I guess, yeah, bring back the details on the red 6s from Acadia, because I think, that right now that space next to Subway is an ugly, hard to use parking lot. So if Acadia says, we really would like to do 6 stories here in order to develop it and make something good, then I think that could be an improvement. As for the 6 non-Acadia, I actually own one of those squares myself and don't plan on developing it anytime soon, so I can say for that. But I do think in general that area down there is just alive, like with the market, and it's bustling. And if the town is going to be looking at doing an investment there where that parking lot is and moving the parking down below to, encourage more growth along Front Street, more activity along Elm, then, by zoning that 6, the Kavanaugh building just sold, I believe, too. So I just think it would be good to have more input on what is required to improve that area to meet the demands that we're seeing there now, right? If we say, no, we're not going to make it 6, then is the Cavanaugh building going to stay a junkyard for the next 20 years? Is that what's going to stop it? I don't know. Just, we want to encourage growth, encourage development. Is that, and it's not on Main Street, it's sort of out of the way. It's not blocking any views. I think it could be really great. So I would like to see more information on what could be possible there and what is the downside to having 4 versus 6. What does that mean for those owners and businesses?
That flanks the rail trail. I think 6 stories will just shadow it. So I mean, I wouldn't vote for it, but you can bring back some details if everybody wants to see them. Or do you want? No,
I'm not in
No.
favor of the 6 there.
okay. Take that one off your plate. Parking. Okay. Parking fronts, so new public parking, Front Street redevelopment. Do we want to see this come back? Councilor Palmer?
We're not adamantly opposed to paid parking, but question I'd have, it comes up every time we talk about this, is going to be a new revenue stream for the town. How much money do you think it's going to bring in? Like, I just can't see it being a significant number, but maybe it is. Maybe I'm missing something.
We have some early numbers based on what Acadia has. We've had Hotspot in here who provides paid parking service for the university. So we'll bring those numbers back because I think if there's support to move to looking at it more, I think thinking about it as a trade-off on things like microtransit or other things that are in the public good, another staff person to do enforcement, things like that, I think it's important.
Great, those numbers would be helpful. Is everyone okay with that diagram?
I just think it's, you're saying no to 6-story building right there, but then taking farmland that looks out across the beautiful view dike and building a parking lot. It's sort of, it doesn't add up to me. Like, I mean, why not have a higher story building there that could, take advantage of that view with people living down there, especially if you're going to put a parking lot there. Now you're going to have a low story building with a big parking lot going out over farmland. It's just not to say that I'm going to build anything there, but just in, thinking of what could be eventually.
Councilor Palmer?
You'd never get to build there.
No.
It's dike land. You'd never get to
You
build
can't
there.
build there.
On the current
Okay.
lot there.
Go through the chair, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's good. Okay, so are we okay with this parking lot coming back as part of, and a redevelopment of, because this then means a redevelopment of Front Street? Because we had a discussion at PAC or Planning Advisory, what the chicken and the egg. If you redevelop Front Street, then you need more parking somewhere else. Or do you build the parking first and then look for development? So we have to be careful of the timing of how those things happen, if
Thank
they
you
are.
so much for raising that, Mayor, and apologies for neglecting that. That's an important point that was raised at the Planning Advisory Committee, that the new parking needs to be timed with these new buildings being built, because there was a concern if you build the new parking and then the building proposals fall apart, that we could pave over some farmland without getting the benefit that people expected. So timing those two things together was feedback that we received.
Can I just add that really within this section, I think the most important thing to wrestle with tonight is the requirements from a land use bylaw perspective. This concept and our ability to do this type of project is really a capital budget discussion that if we get into the fall and we have more certainty and there's a lot of political will to build a parking lot like this, we just kind of need to get into project delivery on how to do that. So I'm going to say, you know, even if there was a lot of support for this, this is a number of years away in a multi-phase type of approach. So I think just conceptually, what Tristan's been trying to communicate is we need abundant parking downtown to do these other things that we're talking about. But if this is really important to for us as far as developing regulations.
Okay. So bring back the numbers on paid parking and for parking requirements. Are we in agreement to bring back or to abolish parking requirements? Yes? Hmm. Okay, I think that seems like a yes. Okay. Neighborhoods. RL restricted. I'm gonna hard time remembering all these
Why don't we
new.
go to this?
Perhaps this map is, this map is most useful to start with. So again, the purple is residential low density, and the hashed areas, yellow, are restricted overlay. And the main difference there is that it'd be fewer units. You'd have a maximum of 2 units in the restricted overlay. And the restricted overlay corresponds with the existing R1 restricted 1-to-1.
So the restricted overlay means you can only have 2 units. And in the purple, you can have 4.
That's right.
So the R, which was R2, goes to R4. Or, right? It was R2 and it's going to R4?
It was
Mostly, yeah.
Okay.
it's going to residential low density.
Right.
I think the focus of the discussion, from my perspective, is around, do we want to maintain the boundary of R1? I think that's
Yes.
been very clear. So I'm going to say
Yeah.
that we're pretty clear on that one. And then I would say that it would really benefit everyone because these are already low density properties. Again, we haven't like captured a whole bunch of properties and changed them significantly. So when you see the details of these 2 zones beside each other, then I think there's more room for debate around, do you want, like we've had debates in the past around, should R1 permit a home office, or should it allow a home-based business? And there's like some difference there, but we have had significant discussion around that. Can you do an Airbnb in R1? That's going to be a big question.
Home or occupied Airbnb.
Yeah. Sorry, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
So
My
I
brain
mean,
is
this was
backwards.
something we talked about at length, I think, at PAC. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, that we said we were fine in R1 if the building facade was the same. So you have the building doesn't change, you decide to have an apartment upstairs or downstairs, and you can't tell if it's, you know, it's still sort of single family, and then you would get to decide. So that's what we were comfortable with. An accessory unit, you started talking, and this is where it gets confusing. You started talking if the land was big enough, because I'm sure some properties in town are an acre and a half. Would that be, would that be feasible? And then you go to the other R2, which is the residential low density, and then you go up to 4, but not all are residential low density RL, which is R2, would allow for, 2 units inside a house and then an accessory with 2. Do you know what I'm saying? So you get all these things of like the rules, and then it gets sort of confusing. That's where I'm landing right now.
Yeah, please, Devin, correct me if I misspeak, but in all of these cases, the number of units that you're allowed are dependent on other restrictions such as lot coverage and setback requirements, et cetera. So if you can't physically fit those extra units on the lot, then you wouldn't be allowed to do that. And that would be true for R1 restricted, and that would be true for the residential low density. For the R1 restricted, the point of having extra rules around the accessory dwelling units is to prevent the kinds of impacts that people are concerned about. So if people are concerned about those units being so close to the house that the windows would look into the windows of existing units, for example, if that's a concern, then we can attempt to design regulations that seeks to prevent that negative outcome. So you would only see those backyard suites on properties where you're not having those negative impacts. And there was a request from the Planning Advisory Committee meeting to really clearly communicate where it would be allowed and where it wouldn't be allowed so that the public understands what is being decided.
Can I ask a
Governor,
follow-up on that? Yeah, so I think where it kind of gets confusing on certain things is that we're doing some of this rezoning so it can be as of right. So you don't need a site plan, you don't need a development agreement. So if somebody tried to put another unit on there and really wasn't allowed, but because they think they can because it's as of right, how does that work from the planning department?
Sure. So, you know, even with as of right, it's not as of right, go build it without speaking to us, right? You still have to file your documents. It's just a simpler, faster process, but you would only get the permit to build it if it meets the rules.
Okay.
I would call it as of right with conditions. There's always conditions on these things.
Always. Can I make a last point on that?
Yeah.
So I just think it's important that the public understand all the differences in that, just to follow up.
I struggle with 4 all around. The only place that I think makes sense at 4, if I go basically behind my house and I go the new new buildings up on the west end that are up here, those are duplexes and fourplexes and all that kind of stuff now. But other than that, below that and all of mine, like all that on the west end and same on the east end. I just don't, yeah, and all that's gonna be all new, so that would make sense. But everything else, well, it would only be allowed 2, I guess. I think we should ask people, what does that mean for your property? Are you okay with that? And should the overlay be bigger if that's the way it should land? And I've said this 100 times, my house is not on a through street, does not have a sidewalk, is newly paved, but it is not, there is no space for any of us on that strip to put anything in the backyard. Anywhere, we would literally have no green space and we would be on top of each other. And that would be atrocious. I think it wouldn't be how I would want to live.
So thank you. I mean, that kind of feedback is really useful, right? Because we can go and try to write regulations that would prevent that kind of concern.
Can I just add something? So we've allowed secondary suites, different things for a long time in a lot of these areas that you're saying. We've had essentially none built. Like it's not, I don't think we'll see a significant uptick all of a sudden because it's incredibly expensive and very difficult and impacts your taxes and does a lot of things. If you ask people that have done projects through our permitting system and really done them properly, it's a tremendous undertaking. I think a lot of the properties that we're showing here are fully built out, as you're saying. I think the opportunities on those properties are pretty limited, but there are some that have pretty big yards. I think your street is totally fair, but the other side of the street, the lots are larger. So I'm not sure, you know, and people talk about Sterling Avenue, they're building 4-unit there now that I think have been very successful. There's not a ton of other areas where that could even happen, where there's any raw land. So you're really talking about probably very few units in this scenario, and from my perspective, or internal renovations that are allowing smaller units. That I think is really the trend and what we really need from a overall housing size perspective, because some of these places are really large.
So I think we need to see what again, the devil's in those details. What are they? Let's see them come back and what properties might actually be suitable to put an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit in the back.
Yeah, I think some
Give us
permit
the
data,
details. Yeah.
some permit data could help. I'm just trying to help confirm what we could bring back. So we're not trying to do a guesswork here. And probably some percentages of properties that have a lot of limitations. And I think you'd then have a set of properties where things are probably more ripe for development. I do keep telling people with enough money, you can probably develop your property. But you know, those circumstances are pretty rare in town. Want to move to the next one?
Okay, yeah, everybody okay with that? Okay. Medium and high density residential.
So we had agreement to nix this table?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
burn it.
So again, the high residential, the intention here is this is where you would have your, 6-story multifamily units on the edge of town. And then the medium density would be more courtyard housing, stacked townhomes. And low-rise apartments, I should say.
Can I ask a question on those? So the ones that are at the top that are residential high density, are those the ones that already have development rights? Am I wrong?
Sorry, are you referring to this one right here?
The dark pink purple at the
This
bottom
one?
of your
Oh,
screen.
top as in top of the hill. of
Yeah,
course.
top of the hill, sorry, not top of the screen. My apologies.
Yeah, these properties do. This property
Yeah.
does not.
Okay.
These properties do have
Right.
multifamily development rights, but this is a bit of a change. And then this is a property that we've been working with Tideways
Right.
on. They're doing a feasibility study on adding more co-op units.
So is everybody, Councilor Palmer?
Well, so what about the remainder of the property off of between Maple and Main, like the rest of the loop that we spent all that time talking about a year and a half ago? Like I'll call it the other Kenny lands in the Mark Hughes land and all that land.
Are you suggesting that we look at some of those for higher density?
Well, it's just, you're not putting anything on them, like that they haven't been included on any map yet.
Oh, no, they're here. Yeah, they're just, if we go to the full summary, they look like this. We haven't proposed really any change over there. That was all through secondary plan process, so there's a mixed use area that requires a development agreement coming off Main Street here. I don't foresee this being developed in the short term.
There's a house being built there now, though.
Yep. Yeah, there's still a small parcel that's in there. And then the other lands, we've worked through that process and we haven't revisited it. It's medium, it's a mix of medium and low density housing.
Councilor Van Niekerk?
Apologies if I missed this, but I thought that one of the things at the public engagement in PAC was about having those like commercial hotspots in areas. And I'm just wondering for these particular residential high density, are you looking at meeting them with commercial as well, like convenience store area where a convenience store could go or something like that? And is that represented anywhere in here?
Those zones do allow.
They do allow for that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
there's some size restriction but typically in those higher density zones, it's a multi-unit building and some type of use in the ground floor is encouraged. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
So I think then we just need to see the details of what all of those
Zones look
zoned
like.
out to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what they enable and what they don't. Mixed use zone.
This
Please all see.
Pretty broad at the moment, just a zone for some institutional uses in effect. I guess the one comment I would make here is that the current mixed use zone is envisions quite large buildings. I think we'd also want to enable smaller, finer grain buildings as well, but not too much direction at this stage.
Deputy Mayor, just to be clear, so the orange are what you recommend mixed use coming from C2. They were all C2 before,
Were they all?
or not all of them were C2.
The only one that I think wasn't is the university-owned property along Highway 101 that you see at the very bottom of the page here. This is the East End secondary plan process. This was already C2. This is the Blomidon Inn. And these were already C2. I don't think we introduced anything new. This is the nursing home. This is Landmark East. I think these are all just, I think all, yeah, as you say, C2.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
So the main difference between the going from mixed use zone from C2 would be that you are allowed short-term rentals without being owner occupied. What, or can you explain what the main, like, give us a couple of the main differences?
So the C2 zone, we spent a lot of time doing that, where we split the downtown into a residential area and a commercial area. So we're eliminating that. And a big part of this, to be really honest, is administratively, we're trying to simplify the number of zones we have. And so having C2, we already had a mixed use zone we had created with the secondary planning. So we're going to be creating and changing this to fit some of the existing uses, allowing those existing uses to expand or redevelop. And that's really it. For the most part, it will be largely like the existing C2 that works with these folks.
Perhaps with the caveat that the existing C2 had some issues with the regulations that made it really hard to develop anything there. So we would also have the goal of making sure that people could build under this.
Councillor Van Niekerk?
I was just wondering if, to further clarify, Deputy Mayor's comment around these were all C2 previously, but there was a question tonight about 699 Sterling not being C2, that was residential 604.
Right, yeah, and that, so that's an adjacent property owned by Wolfville Nursing Home as well. And so we don't really have any definitive concepts on that. And so we, just to address all of these people that have come to, we will look more closely at that. I'm just saying that we will look more closely at that particular issue and bring back more information for council. I haven't got into fine grained detail of on that site. What we've had is some preliminary concepts shown to us because the province is looking to fund nursing homes. And so with the change of ownership, a group's come in and bought the holdings of Wolfville Nursing Home, and they're looking at what their potential reinvestment opportunities are. And I just want to sort of take the veil off of what we do as staff people. So we're meeting with people constantly and looking at concepts for properties, right? And so this isn't something that is, being done in any ill faith here. We're always doing that. That's part of what we're being paid for. That's in our job descriptions, is to look at what the zoning is on a property. I have multiple staff that do this, what the potential is. And so what they're looking at in terms of their initial proposal was, what could they do now under the existing zoning? And then what could they do with the holdings that they have to do things around that property? So whether they had put a building on that strip of land or not, they were still looking at. And I'm not sure that the building was on that strip of land. I can't say. But just, we don't have an application for a building on that site. And so we can bring back more information, and we're certainly, we certainly hear the concerns. And I know there's been some meetings that my staff have had about those sites.
So with the mixed use, can you bring us back, I guess, why those from C2 to mixed use, what you can do in mixed use, and what is beside those, so we can see what effects and implications those have on their neighbors.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Short-term rentals, was that part of this as well? Okay. So enable short-term rentals. What does everyone feel about this one? Councillor Van Eker?
So, you know, C1 currently allows for short-term rentals. If it's not your primary, it's the only zone you can actually do short-term rentals in. So obviously by expanding the C1 to the red, you're basically allowing for short-term rentals under the existing C1. So you're not really changing anything. You're just expanding the zone to allow more for it. But based on some of the analysis I've done on short-term rentals, I think that does kind of encompass the majority of them in the town. There's still obviously a lot going on in other places, but that is, I think of it as, you know, the downtown is for business. And if somebody's running a short-term rental as a business and they're paying, you know, to have a place in the downtown core and they want to use it for short-term rental, then I think that makes sense. So I don't see any concerns with this. And then I guess what I think, again, back to the devil in the detail, though, what we really need to see is what happens outside of that C1 zone everywhere else. And especially like what would happen in the new R1 and other places. So I think that's where we need to see it really spelled out.
Agreed.
And to remind folks, we are proposing to enable people to rent out units in homes in R1. And part of the motivation there is that we understand that many people are doing this informally. So we'd like to bring them in within the bounds of the law. But also, you know, there are some people who this helps them afford their house, especially as they age. There's few people in those homes. So it provides more options for people.
Yeah, I'm not sure about short-term rentals and all of those. If we're allowing units for housing, I think that's one thing. Allowing them for short-term rentals, I think it's a totally different ballgame. So I'd have to really look at those regulations and see what they say, because I'm not sure I'd say yes to that at this moment. Anyone have any comments on that? Deputy Mayor?
I honestly don't remember at PAC talking about R1, the existing R1, to have it as short-term rentals. I was thinking that they're long-term rentals like the apartments, but I don't remember.
That's what I recall.
I don't remember having the talk in R1 that we would have short-term rentals. We did not. Am I correct?
I don't remember that either, but does anyone?
I do
could be wrong.
believe I received some positive feedback
Okay.
on that notion.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I'll just make it right.
I think sorry, can I speak?
Yes.
I think you just need to be mindful that area was like R1 restricted. And then there is a difference between short-term rentals and a long-term rental when the same person lives there. So that's something to be thought of. I'm not saying I'm against it. It's just, I need a little bit more information on that, because that's a lot of people coming and going. I know that over in your area, there are some already, and I know there are an abundance, maybe some already. But that's more traffic coming and going. So that's a little different.
Great.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
just,
Like,
because that one is a little bit sticky on, we have licensing happening through the province. There's people who are relying on that income. And I think I may encourage some of them to come and sort of delegate for themselves and maybe give that first person perspective so we can just hear the story. We're getting it as staff through like a regulatory process. And we've shut some short-term rentals down in R1 over the years. And those people have been paying attention to this process. So I just want to, they have asked us to look at that. So I think we'll bring like a clear directional piece in the package about that as a decision point.
Sure. Bring back the details on that too. Deputy Mayor?
Can I just say that I did not have clear direction from PAC that we talked about that for the record.
Okay.
That's all. So.
Is that the last box? Okay, so you'll come back with clearly a lot more details, a lot more work. So this was just a high level. What can you get some direction on? We
That's
need
great.
way more details.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's
Thank
great.
you very much.
Okay.
Just one
Yeah.
more thing.
Councilor Van Niekerk?
Sorry, just wanted to add one more comment just about like on the communication of the public engagement sessions and just, I know that you guys did so much work on getting that out there. I heard it on the radio and I saw it online but I just am conscious that there's still so much more that we could do. So I'm not sure, maybe as part of this, we could see more strategy around the communication on it too.
Thank you. That feedback is well received. And that is, we've been having some deep conversations with staff about how we could level up the communications for the next round. So people really feel like they're heard. And we're also intending to go out to where people are with more pop-ups the next round as well. But yeah, that feedback is well received. Thank you.
We did have two, sorry, Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, I just had to say, we did have three, actually, I guess,
Oh, yeah.
maybe three
I guess-
sessions at the Legion. But I guess my question would be for the people for the benefit of the people in the audience, other than the public hearings that are coming up, and that's going to be a ways from now, how would you suggest that they make comments on what you're going to do in the next 2 weeks?
So we're going to bring back some draft documents and then publicize those. I think what we've had success with before with the last plan review was sending everyone in town a letter and making it somewhat specific to where they live. And so they could go and receive information. You know, the mayor's been saying the devil's in the details. They can see the details. So, okay, here's what is being proposed. I would say that zoning map that we're showing, we haven't gone through that with a fine tooth comb. We're at a pretty high level here. I've noticed things just looking at it today. And so that'll be more refined. In the past, I don't know if people remember this, we had an actual zoning map that was on the back page and we had a really simple plain language pamphlet just outlining what we were trying to do. I'd really like to do something like that again. And then we'll do some open houses and some discussion. People can send letters, people can talk to counselors, people can come in and meet with staff. But then it gets more formal, right? I think we should be clear about that. Then it becomes a legislated process where there will be another round of notification. Council is considering this document. This is what it is. You can go look at it here. And at that point, once we're in the public hearing stage, it's at the will of council really to move the decision forward. And hopefully at that point we're comfortable, but we'll see where we get.
That's about it.
I'm just wondering, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of different topics. It's a lot of things that will affect development and decisions down the road, budget considerations, et cetera. If it's something that when it comes back to us could just be sort of earmarked as its own meeting, as opposed to being part of an 8-item agenda, where do you put it so that everything gets all of our brain power? At moments tonight, I found it a lot to try to piece it all together with the questions and the comments and stuff, when really usually the council's meetings are a little less on the brain. So if it's something that could be brought back sort of maybe as its own entity to us, I think that would help, because it is going to snowball a lot of decision making down the road. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, or maybe it's a joint council and planning meeting or something. And I'm a big fan of workshops and seeing how things go and have those interactive ones, because we seem to get really good input and a lot of great discussion from those. So if we can do something like that too, but.
Can we just talk this out for a second, just
Yeah, sure.
while we're here? I would suggest that, I think that's a great idea. And so maybe when we come with the early drafts, we could do a workshop with both groups. That's been successful in the past. It also introduces the content, and as Councillor Butler said, there's going to be a lot of content. From there, though, we will be separating the groups. I think council will benefit from a formal recommendation from the planning committee and seeing where the tensions are. That's what the legislative process would say. So
Yep.
maybe a kind of a two-stage thing. and
Sure.
then-
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it does have to come back to this table, but I guess that'd be something to work through, and then we can get some, a good discussion going. And then, so the month of August, the planning department will be going back, putting all those details together. In September, will we get a draft document? So, and then we'll start sending out notices then for people to come give input, or what's your, just so people know what to expect and when to expect it coming up?
I'm projecting that early October is what we're looking at. I just think August is going to be difficult with people being away, and we'll make a lot of progress. But I think just to be safe, I don't want to promise September. If we can get something in late September, that would be ideal. But I'm going to say it's probably going to be early October.
Early October for documents to come out. Okay, great. Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, can I just have a follow-up to the project timeline? I always look at that when I sort of want to know where we are. And as Mayor McKay just said, you said October. So when I'm looking at this and where we are and the action plan, package 2 and 3, council direction is where we are now. And then you have public engagement in the autumn. Can you have, like, if there's anything in between there, can you add them? You know what I mean? Or if there's a PAC meeting, or if there's any decision points, because the next thing we have is public engagement.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah,
then,
so it's
and
town
then,
council direction, July
then-
2025.
yeah, and so can we have those a little bit more specific so the public knows? Because what happens is oftentimes when I'm talking to people, I'm sure other people are, I'm like, there's no decision, like you're making recommendations. We haven't decided on anything. These are, we're giving you direction on where we're interested in, but council hasn't made any decisions. So it would be good for the public to know where they can come in and not feel like, oh geez, am I too late? So if there's anything you need to add, can you add it to the timeline?
Yeah, maybe we could add it to the Wolfville Bloom site, because we're getting pretty definitive now, and we're almost steering towards like booking spaces and everything. So let's maybe we'll send out a note to council and broadcast that here's the timeline now till Christmas.
And for those who don't know, Wolfville Blooms is the communication platform that we use that has the projects and all of the information on there. You can ask questions, send feedback in. So everything is in the book. So it's wolfvilleblooms.ca. Okay. Great. Thank you, Council, for that discussion. We are at the end. Nope. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. We are adjourned.